The Conservative Party has wrapped up their convention in Vancouver. The party has been grappling with some key policy issues, and that has given rise to some controversy. On Friday, a Muslim supporter of the party took to the floor to criticize the Conservatives' treatment of Muslims during the last election. Urz Heer is a member of the party's Brampton South riding in Ontario. In her speech, she said, quote, "This party worked actively and aggressively against my people. It didn't differentiate who Muslims were versus the enemy. For the first time, I felt like I didn't belong here." Well, Urz Heer joins us now from Seattle, Washington, as her trip continues through from the convention. So those are some strong words. Thank you so much for joining us. What led you to say them at the convention?
Thank you very much for having me. Sorry, I missed your question.
I'm sorry, yeah. What led you to say those words, to make those comments to the convention?
So during the convention, there was a session, a feedback session, and others were voicing their opinions on how the 2015 election went. And a lot of the comments were, it was negative campaign, we went the wrong way. It was too divisive. Somehow I mustered the courage to go up and actually offer some feedback I wasn't planning on. But when I did, I basically, shared that it was a disaster of a campaign. It was hugely divisive. It basically didn't differentiate Muslims who contribute to the fabric of Canada, who are doctors, lawyers, engineers, who are peace-loving. But what they did was they went on an agenda to go against the community. Going against terrorism is something that we agree to, but when you're waging war against every aspect of, like waging war against terrorism, jihadis, but not differentiating that Muslims aren't included in that bucket. That was the issue. So I think if they had went that one step further and said, but we don't feel that Canadian Muslims fall into that category, and we want to make sure that you can separate the two. I think that was an angle, and a lot of Muslims felt alienated. A lot of Muslims felt targeted, and it really, if anything, it actually worked against them, because it activated over 80% of our community to go out and vote against the Conservative government.
So what was the reaction? Those are strong comments to make. What was the reaction from the other delegates once they heard you speak? You must have heard some kind of feedback from people. Well,
there were a couple of people who shouted, not so, and I said, yes, it was. It did happen. But, when I came out of it, I had huge amount of applause from the room, and I had been stopped, I had been hugged. I really felt encouraged that the delegates also felt the same way. And they came up to me and they actually said that, we're really sorry for the way the campaign went. And we totally agree with you. And I'm so glad that you voiced what you did.
Well, yesterday we asked Conservative MP and leadership candidate Kellie Leitchs for her response to your comments. Here's what she had to say.
I commend Ms. Urz. I commend our party to allowing that open debate. And I think that she made a very good point with respect to how she interpreted what we were doing, that we were not being inclusive, and that will allow our party to grow going forward so that we take responsibility for our actions, and we now move forward to being more inclusive and having individuals, whether it's herself or others from the Muslim community or all religions and all backgrounds, being included in our party.
Of course, many Canadians will remember Kellie Leitchs setting up the Barbaric Practices Hotline during the campaign. Many pointed to that as some of the concerns that you're pointing to as well. What do you think of her comments now?
I think they're honest and sincere. I actually believe that she actually approached me and said that she wanted to apologize to the community. At that point, they just went with whatever the campaign headquarters told them. And, this is the one thing that was, that has to be said about the previous election and the previous government. They never allowed for MPs to ever disagree with them. It was what they said, and that's how it had to be. So imagine, even a minister couldn't object or oppose Although our expectation as Canadians is we do expect our MPs and the ministers to call out something when it is not right and not fair. And I think, to her defense, maybe she got caught up in all of that. I know how overwhelming the PMO has been throughout government. It has been a constant battle with the Prime Minister's office. Anytime I had ever said anything or objected to something, I was muzzled. I wasn't allowed to say anything. The MPs weren't allowed to say anything. And so then during the campaign campaign headquarters, Jenny Byrne and company, they basically said, look, we did this 3 times. We've won 3 elections. We're going to go again, and we're going to do this again, and you're not going to object or oppose. So, it was a very hard campaign to continue with, just because of the fact that it was their way or the highway. You just had to do what they said.
It's remarkable to hear your perspective on this. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Conservative Party delegate Urz Heer speaking to us from Seattle, Washington.